going to look at how to build the flow. But before you do that, let's take a look at the two SharePoint lists that I'll be using. The first one, I call that as Flic owner. As you can see, I've got three columns over here. One is for the Flic button's unique universal ID. The second one is for the technician, and the third one is for the color. Let's also take a quick look at what these column types are. So again, it's the Flic owner, and my columns are basically a single line of text for both the color and the button ID, and then for the technician I've just put that as a person or group. So that's for the Flic owner. The next one that I have is called Flic, and this is the one that's actually going to record the tasks of the technician. As you can see, I've already done some testing over here, and all of them is regarding Joseph Matthews over here. So Joseph Matthews on the other list has gotten a unique button, and the color is green. So that's why when I do a lookup for that button on that list, that's how I'm getting these green colors over here. So in a nutshell, anytime you have a new technician or a field engineer and you provide a new button, physical button to that engineer, this is where you go ahead and put that information in, and then whatever is available over here gets looked up in Flow, and all the information is recorded over here on this list. So let's go and take a look at the properties of this list as well. There are a few more columns over here. As you can see, I've put what was originally the title column. I just went ahead and changed that to the button's universal unique identifier, and then everything else is basically either a single line of text or a number or a numerical column. And that's basically it over here. So let's switch over now to Flow, and I'll go and look at the two existing flows that I already have. I had created these flows for that green Flic button, the one that I was showing in the other demo of how to configure the Flic button. These are the two flows that I've already built. One is for the Flic green when the technician arrives, and the other one is for when the technician departs. So now I'm going to go ahead and create the new one. I'll go to Team Flows, I'll create one form blank, I'll call this one as Flic White, because this is going to call that white button that we had configured before, and I'll call this as Technician Arrived. So the first thing I want to do now is for Flic, so I'll type in Flic, and I want to use when a Flic is pressed. Now actually, before I even do this, what I want to look at is the connections that we have. So in the connection over here, I already have my connection for Flic. So just like any other connection, you basically go to click a connection over here, and that's when you make a connection to your Flic. And as I mentioned in the previous video, you need to have your Flic account already set up. That's when you just go to the website, or when you're creating the app itself or setting up the app on your phone or the smartphone, you can create your account over there, because that's the same authentication you will use to create this connection. Alright, so let's go back to Flows. We'll create a team flow, and I'll create one from blank. And again, I'm going to call this as Flic White. There's that, so I'll keep that as it is. Type in Flic, and then when a Flic is pressed. Now over here, it will recognize the configurations that I've done in the app before. So if you recall, in the app I had a Flic White and a Flic Green. Those are the only two buttons I had over here. So that's why when I select over here, I should only see those two buttons. So it is loading, which means it's looking up on the Flic, and now I should only see 2 of them, and there it is. So the my white Flic, that's the one that I just configured, so I'm going to use that. And in the events, I am going to use, since this is when a technician, white technician arrives, let's change that over here. Since it arrived, I'm going to use that as a single click, and so that's going to be this action over here. When a Flic button is pressed, I'm using my white Flic button, and this is only when there's one click. Alright, so the next step I want to do is I'm going to get the forecast. So here I'll just type in for and get forecast for today, and this is coming from MSN Weather. Now in MSN Weather, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to provide the latitude and the longitude, and that information comes from Flic. So when I click over here, you can see that the dynamic is already available, the dynamic content. So I'm going to provide the latitude, comma, space, longitude. So those are the 2 dynamic contents that I select. This is coming from the Flic button over here, and I'll leave the units as imperial. Alright, so next step now is, again, I'm going to add an action, but this time it's coming from SharePoint. So I'll just select the SharePoint here, and I'm doing get items. So I'm using get items because I want to get all the items from that Flic owner list that we talked about, the one I just showed you over here, because I want to go ahead and pull all the owners and compare their UIDs. So that's what I'm doing in this section. I should already have my URL here, the site address. Yep, I do. So I'll just select that. And if you don't, you can always go ahead and type that in. And in this case, I'm going to select the Flic owner. Okay, so now that I did that, the next step is going to be and apply to each. So over here, there's always just one option, and the get items is value. So I'll select the value. And now I'm going to add a condition. So in my condition, I want to do a lookup. The lookup is if the buttons from the button ID, the UID from the Flic, matches the button UID on my Flic owner list, then go ahead and get me the owner. That's what we're doing over here. So let me just go ahead and pull that information. When the button is clicked, I already get the ID of that button, but I want to now compare this UID with the one on my list. So once I do the comparison, if it matches, go ahead and get me that technician's name. So that's basically what I'm doing over here. So I'll get that UID. Now I want to use the get item list. That's the one, and I'm going to compare it to that. And if it matches, then I'm going to create an item. So I go back and add an action. I'm going to use the SharePoint. In SharePoint, I'm going to create an item. And this time, I'm going to create it on the Flic list. Now that I do that, all these other columns should show up. So in my Flic, in this column over here, the ones that I'm going to pull are from not the get items. I'm going to pull it. Yeah, actually, I'm pulling it from the get items. I'm getting the button ID over here. I'm getting the technician's name over here. Display name. And this information all comes from the click type comes from Flic. So I go down here, even going, I get the click type. The status is, I am going to type that in as arrived. click time, again, that comes from the Flic, so I will do that as the click time. Button color. The button color comes from the get items list, so I'll do that here. And then all this other information will come from both either the Flic or the weather, the MSN weather. So let's just go and do that. The latitudes and the longitudes, I got that from Flic, so there's the latitude, longitude, again, scroll all the way down, get the longitude, conditions. So the conditions, in this case, I'm going to get them from the weather, MSN weather. Conditions, rain chance, maximum speed, maximum wind speed, humidity is high, humidity low, temperature high. All of this information, I'm getting them directly from the get forecast today. And then here's the postal address. That is also coming from the get forecast. And over here it's called location. And then finally I get the weather link. The weather link is over here, the URL to the weather details. Now that's the information that is going to get added to the item. I am also going to send out an email, and that's the email that will go to either the engineer or the technician's manager or the supervisor. So for that I need an Outlook. In this case I'm using my Office 365 Outlook. I'm sending an email. Now if you are going to send out this email, then you need to have the Office 365 user connection as made, because that's when you can find out the user's manager. In my case, I am just going to use my name over here, so I can just type that in. I'll just wait for it to load. Yep, so that's going to be my address here. Subject, I'm going to put that as the technician's display name. So that's coming in from the create item. Let me just get that technician. I'll get the status at the location. So if all these variable values were filled in, it'll basically say Daniel has arrived at the location. That's basically what that subject line will look like. Alright, so over here, same thing. I'm just going to say technician has arrived, then current weather conditions have been provided below as well. And so I'm going to provide things such as the address, and I'll just put that in as approximate. Let me also just go and put in all the values first. So arrival time, weather conditions, humidity high, put the percent sign there, humidity low, again put the percent sign there, maximum wind speed in miles per hour, rain chance, again that's in percent, temperature high, Fahrenheit, scroll down a bit, And we have link to MSN weather information. Okay, so let's start adding all this up. The address over here, and let me just get that straight from the MSN weather. So the address in this case was just location. Arrival time, that came from Flic. So the arrival time was the click time. Weather conditions, that came from here. Forecast. Then all of this is going to come from forecast. Humidity high, humidity low, maximum wind speed, rain chance, temperature high, low, and then we have this one over here. So we've taken care of the body of the email. Now I know I went ahead and got all these information from the forecast. You can also go ahead and get that information from the the get items list over here. You can do that with the create item over here. You can do that as well. So now we are basically done in this section, and at least on this section of the flow where when the technician arrives, he or she will basically click on we'll click on the white Flic button only once. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. And we'll go ahead and mark that as done. And what we're going to do is go back and create another flow. That's going to be for when the technician will depart. So on the white one, we've done the technician arrived. Now we need to do another one for technician departs. So that's going to be, again, create from blank. It's going to be very similar, except in this case, we will do it when the Flic is double-click or is on hold. So let me type in Flic. Let's do white. Instead of arrived, I will put in departed. Right, so now let's go ahead and finish that off. Again, pretty much the same thing. First things first is we type in Flic. And Flic is pressed. Over here, I should find the white one and the green one, because those are the only two we've configured so far. So, yep, and I see them, but I'm using the white one. I am going to do the double click, and then let's go ahead and add another action, and that is the forecast. So I just type in FORE and it picks up the forecast. I'll do a forecast for today. Same thing. I'll do the latitude, comma, space, longitude, leave the units as imperial. Add new item. New item is get items from the Sharepoint connection to get items. Over here again, I'm going to put the Flic owner list, just like I did on the other one. And also in this section, I'm going to add an apply to each, because I want to do the same thing. I want to look up to find all the buttons ID, the button that you've clicked. Do that lookup on the Flic owner list. So that's the exact same thing I'm doing over here. I'm going to do the condition. In this condition, I'm going to compare the button from Flic. So I'm looking for Flic over here and the button UID from Flic. Compare that with the button from our get items. So if it matches, then The next thing we want to do is go ahead and create that item. And that item is from SharePoint, create item, and this time you're going to put it on the Flic list. And once I do that, it goes ahead and populates all the information. So over here is pretty much straightforward. There, technician's name, I also get it from here. Click type, that comes from the Flic. Status over here is going to be departed. Click time, that comes from the Flic connection. So click time. Button color, that comes from the get items. So put that over here. Again, latitude comes from Flic. Longitude again comes from Flic. Conditions, that comes from the MSN weather or the get forecast. Rain chance also from here. Miles per hour, maximum wind speed, humidity high, the humidity low, temperature high, temperature low, postal address, that is coming from the get forecast, but it's called location, and then the final weather is just the link over here, right? And then we've completed that, and I'll also finish off with the sending off the email. And for that we use the Outlook 365, at least that's what I'm using in this case. You guys could use your Gmail or whatever else, that other options that you have. And over here I'm configuring the exact same way, except there'll be a little bit of verbiage change. So for my example, I'm just putting in my name, but as I said before, you guys can actually use the Office 365 users and get the users manager over there. So you have that option. So I'm going to do that. In this case, I'll type in the technician's name. And so I'm going to say technician has status, and in this case the status is departed from current location. And then here, this body will be very similar to what we had before. So again, I'm putting in technician has departed, and then departed from the current location, current weather conditions have been provided below. Same thing, I'm going to type in the address, approximate the departure time, weather conditions, humidity high, put that in percent, humidity low, again put that percent, maximum wind speed, and that was in miles per hour. Rain chance, percent, temperature high, it's in Fahrenheit, temperature low, it's also in Fahrenheit, and then the link to MSN's weather information. Okay, so now that I have these texts over here, let's go ahead and add the dynamic content. So the address, I got the address from here, or in this case it was location that came from the get forecast. The departure time was when we had the click, the button clicked, so it comes from Flic. That was the click time. Weather conditions, humidity high, low, maximum speed, wind speed, rain percent chance, temperature high, temperature low, and then the rest of the weather conditions. So now we've got even this taken care of. Just to double check, this will be stored in Flic only when the event is a double click. So now I can go ahead and click create, click done, and there you have it. So we've now got our two flows created. One is for when the technician has arrived, and the other one is for the technician's departed. And in this case, as you can see, that this has got the Flic, SharePoint, MSN Weather, and I've also used the Office 365 Outlook. And the only difference between the two is some of the verbiage in the email body, but the key thing is in Flic arrived, it's looking for, let's say, single click or click once, and for the technician departed, it's a double click. So in the next video, we'll actually go through a full demo of how when you click on the button, the physical click button, it'll go ahead and kick off the entire process, and we'll look at that demo. So here's how you build the flow. Thanks.